Good morning, Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another edition of Lovin Daily, brought to you by Browns and You. Hi, Tim. How's it going?
Morning, Chris. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Another week is with us, and this is Father's Day week, by the way. So we'll be talking about Father's Day competition shortly, which you should really participate in. In the meantime, start tagging your dads and telling us why they're the best in the world. Today is also the 100th day of COVID in Malta, right? 100 days since we first had a COVID patient in Malta, and we've got a number of things to update you on from what happened yesterday. So let's start with the headlines. The public emergency in Malta is officially cancelled, and mass events can start. There's no more 75-person rule, and travel is going to be opening further very, very quickly. We'll talk a bit about what the Prime Minister said yesterday. Also, an investigation into faulty concrete at the Ċirkewwa terminal that's been kept under wraps for 2 years. Hate crime reports quadrupled in the wake of Black Lives Matter's protests. The University of Malta has slipped 100 places in the global rankings in a year. And the PN has agreed some statute changes, but has decided against a name change or a new motto. So, Tim, start us off with the first story. The public emergency has cancelled and mass events are going to be able to restart. What did the Prime Minister tell us yesterday?
So, yes, the Prime Minister made quite a few major announcements yesterday morning. Malta is no longer under a public health emergency. So, we've been in this public state of emergency ever since March, ever since the pandemic broke out, and now we're no longer in it. So it's quite a huge declaration from the government as to where it considers our position in terms of the pandemic. Now, what this means is that all legal notices that were introduced due to COVID-19 will be revoked. This includes the legal notice which imposed limits on public gatherings, as you rightly said. So it currently stands at 75 people. This will be completely revoked, which means essentially that mass events can take place again, and the police can no longer fine you for being in close proximity with other people. Meanwhile, travel is also going to open up even further. So as we already knew, the airport is going to partially reopen on 1st July, and now it was already going to open to 19 countries and regions, but now it's going to open up to even more countries. And we're even talking about countries like Spain, like France, like Italy. So countries which were hit pretty badly by COVID-19 at the start of the pandemic, but which have since, whose situations have since improved. But it's still quite a strong statement from the Maltese government as to where, as to its direction. Like it seems to have. It seems to be going full drive in favor of of tourism to Malta, which obviously, as we know, is a major component of our economy. And then on 15 July, the airport's going to reopen in full. That means there won't be any restrictions. We're talking even like countries like the UK will be allowed, Northern Italy, everywhere really. So what do you make of this, Chris? Are you planning a holiday yet?
Yes, I'm very excited because now my second holiday is officially on again. So that's really good. But it must be said, we also had a person. We wrote an article about a vulnerable person yesterday who's really quite frightened by these changes. So we must keep in mind that for people who have particular sensitivities or vulnerabilities, these measures, which make everyone else very happy, makes them more worried. So I think that's something to keep in mind. I think another observation from yesterday, it was good to see the Prime Minister actually bring in journalists into his Sunday sermon instead of having a One News employee asking him questions. I think that was a step forward. Obviously, there was also the fact that these major announcements are still being made on One News, on One TV on a Sunday morning, instead of through a proper press conference, as Repubblica pointed out later on in the day. These things deserve a bit more gravitas and officialness. On that point, there were a lot of people yesterday who were quite annoyed at the fact that for example, mass events have been allowed when, just a couple of days ago, major events were being cancelled because of what the advice was from the health authorities. And I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered following the Prime Minister's comments, especially with regard to things like weddings, for example, and private events that, how big can they be, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we'll hear some more on that from Chris Fenn's press conference today. And also just a note about yesterday's COVID cases, where 3 new cases registered, 2 recoveries, and so the active cases stand at 37. So we'll move on to our second story, a big story that Lovin Malta broke on Saturday, which is that concrete at the Ċirkewwa passenger terminal is deteriorating fast. So we know that this terminal was built in 2012 by the Nationalist administration just before the 2013 election. It was a project that was entrusted to Chatnu, the Polidano Group. At 10 million euro of EU funds were used on this project, and only 5 years later, the concrete is deteriorating. So experts are telling us that either there was the wrong concrete used, you should have had very high-grade concrete for such a marine environment, or maybe it was set wrongly. So we need to kind of see what's happening. But I think what's interesting is that we've had we've had a situation where this investigation has been taking place since 2018, according to the Sunday Times yesterday, and it's been kept under wraps. They haven't spoken about this. The government hasn't announced this in any way. Now the government, after we've questioned this incident, they're saying, "Oh yeah, the place is safe," but it begs the question, what are we trying to do over here? And what the government is saying is that they're trying to seek an amicable solution with the contractor in question, even though some legal steps were taken. What do you make of this, Tim?
Yeah, what I find interesting about this is that obviously, like a few years ago, if you remember, the government had made quite a big deal about findings that Mater Dei Hospital had been built with faulty concrete, and they took the previous administration to task over it. In this instance, not only have they not criticized the previous nationalist government, but they've actually kept this under wraps for now we found out for like 2 years, and it just begs the question as to why. As in, is it because of the contractor involved? I mean, he's one of the most wealthiest and most powerful contractors in Malta, so perhaps that might have something to do with it, just thinking aloud. But it had to be the media to bring this up. Otherwise, the public wouldn't have even known that there's an investigation ongoing, let alone that there could be problems with the Ċirkewwa terminal and its safety.
And whether we would end up having to foot the bill for more construction. I think that's one of the points. Who is going to pay to fix and to change the concrete that was used. Let's move on to the next story, Tim. What do we know about the reports on hate crime?
Yes. So new statistics came out, were published yesterday, which showed that 31 cases of hate crime were reported in the first week of June, which contrasts quite sharply to the 7 cases that were reported in the first week of May. Now, obviously, between May and June, there were quite a lot of developments, most notably the Black Lives Matter movement that started off in America, but gained traction around the world, including in Malta. And this also caused quite a lot of friction, a lot of tension around different people, among different communities. And unfortunately, there were quite a lot of vile comments as well being passed. And this, in fact, led the hate crime unit, which is quite a new unit, basically to discourage people from hate crime. And I think it basically issued a statement advising people on how to report a hate crime, basically telling them that before you go straight to Facebook and tell the world that you're being attacked and that you're going to report a hate crime, first actually file the report so that we have the evidence and can preserve it before the perpetrator removes it. Now, the question is obviously, what were these reports? I mean, it could also be that some of them were frivolous, for all we know, and what if any action is going to be taken on them. So we do know that since the start of 2020, only 5 people have been charged with hate crime in Malta. We're not even talking about convictions, we're talking about the actual process of getting to court. So there is still a bit of a gap between the reporting and the prosecution, and then the final conviction as well. So that's something that is a gap in our legal system as well.
Yeah, I think it's good that people are reporting more. I think it's good to have some more consciousness around hate speech. And now we need to see how effectively it's going to be policed. Moving on to our next story, the University of Malta has slipped 100 places in the global ranking. So there was some controversy yesterday about how this was reported. So the University of Malta has been ranked 1,762 in the 1,762nd place out of a full ranking of 2,000, but the number of universities is actually 20,000. So the Center for World Rankings does some rankings of universities, and Malta has come in place 1,762. Now, the University of Malta has promoted this as a great thing because Malta has ranked in the top 10% of universities globally out of 20,000 universities. However, Lovin Malta has pointed out that we have slipped 100 places. We are at the bottom quarter of the 2,000 that are actually ranked, and maybe we should be thinking about how to improve things rather than patting ourselves on the back. What do you make of this?
I absolutely agree with that. I don't think that being close to 1,800 in the world is anything to be proud about. I mean, okay, I'm not expecting the University of Malta to compete with the likes of Yale or Cambridge, but I mean, come on, surely we should be targeting a higher position than 1,800 globally. I mean, let's not forget that, okay, yes, we are a small island, but we've come in leaps and bounds. Our economy has grown, at record rates. We boast how we're back on the safest countries in the world in terms of COVID. And then we're praising ourselves for reaching 1,800 in the world. Come on. I mean, this is our only university. So, I mean, surely we can be targeting at least, I would say, the top 500, and not even better than that. And being pleased at this current ranking, especially since we've gone down. I mean, it's just going to foster, I think, a culture of mediocrity, and will only help us slip further down the rankings.
So let's move on to the last story, Tim. The Nationalist Party agreed to not change much.
Well, we don't know about that. I mean, there was a discussion on a proposed statute change over the weekend by the Nationalist Party's executive committee. So if you remember, like going back to this all started last year when the PN got trashed pretty badly at the MEP and local council elections, and Adrian Delia decided to appoint former Minister Louis Gallia to propose reforms to the party statute to kind of reinvigorate the party and modernize it and get it, make it more prepared to win a general election. Now this process dragged on a bit. The COVID crisis actually lengthened the process. Like it was just meant to be done in March, but the COVID crisis delayed it. And now the executive has finally agreed on a statute on a proposed statute which has to be voted on by the council, and the details have yet to be published. But what we do know is that it's not going to include a change in name or a new motto. So there was a bit of a debate over this. Like one of the proposals being mooted by Louis Gallia was to change the name from Partit Nazzjonalista to Partit Nazzjonalista dash Partit Popolari tal-Popolo, something like that, and to add a motto saying that the PN's motto is going to be "A servit tiegħek," at your service. And this was, the executive decided not to introduce it. So on paper, the party is going to remain the same as it was, and that we'll see in the coming hours whether there has been any significant proposed changes to the statute.
I think some of the changes include structural ones, right? Like how many general secretaries are going to be.
That's what it seems to be. Like they're going to introduce new presidents, so one president in charge of policy, one in charge of outreach, a couple of new branches, some gender mainstreaming as well. Apparently, need to look into that a bit more. So issues like this, they're more structural changes. I mean, obviously, you can change the structure as much as you like, but without the people there, and without the passion, and without the ideas, you can keep changing the statute as many times as you like, and you.
So Tim, just before we close the program, I want to get a sense of what we're expecting today. I know there's another court hearing today in the case of Daphne Caruana Galizia's assassination, right?
Yes. So today, a certain Johan Cremona is going to testify. Now, Johan Cremona is a character, quite an elusive character, who's popped up throughout this saga. He was a friend of Melvin Thoma, who's the middleman and turned state witness, and also a business partner of Jürgen Fenech, the suspect Jürgen Fenech, in one of his betting companies. And he seems to have been an associate with both of them. He seemed to have quite a lot of information on what was going on. We don't yet know exactly how much he was involved in, but hopefully we're going to find out way more about him and his role in all of this when he testifies today.
Okay, thanks for that. Also, guys, we've just started a new competition today with Browns and You. So I want you to start tagging your dads and telling us why they're the best in the world while we present to you the prize of this competition. So this time round, we're going to be giving away laser hair removal treatment. So anyone whose dad is a gym buff or has way too much hair on their body, we're giving away €80 worth of laser hair removal from Browns. All you need to do is tag your dad in the comments below. Just name your dad, tag him, and tell us why he deserves to win this laser hair removal treatment. Super painless, very high standard laser hair removal. €80 worth. We're giving away that every day. So an hour of laser hair removal being given away every day on Lovin Daily this week as part of Father's Day, which is on Sunday. So start tagging your dads, and we hope to surprise them with this gift soon. I think that's all from us for today, right, Tim? Thanks for joining us, Lovin Daily. So for another start of another week, the 100 days of COVID in Malta, and it seems to all be coming to an end. So that's it from myself, Chris Pergine, Tim Diacono. Have a day full of loving.